All right, this is it. Sixth Sunday of Easter, Easter season drawn to a close. We're getting ready to head into Pentecost. And you're gonna be sick of me, you're done with me. I've been here 6 weeks now. You're like, Mark, just stop talking. Okay, but we're not done just yet. So the sixth Sunday of Easter, here's the situation. Okay, go back in time with me. I'm a youth minister at a parish. We're doing Life Teen. And all the parishes in our area, in Arizona, out in the desert, we all used to get on buses and we would drive west out to the beach, because when you live in the desert, you drive to the beach, okay? Because you live on the surface of the sun, you want a little bit of water, right? So we all go out there and we'd have this huge mass on the beach. And there'd be like 6 or 10 different parishes, different Life Team programs from all over Arizona. And we'd all go to the same area on the beach. We had this huge mass. We'd bring in the priests, we'd bring in music, and it'd be like 1,000, 2,000 teenagers just going to mass on the beach. People rollerblading by were losing their minds. Like, what is going on right now? They couldn't figure it out, right? But I'll never forget, we were pulling up to the beach just one day. And as my teens were getting off our buses, like 3 or 4 buses, this other parish, their teens were getting off their buses, and they started doing like this chant. It was almost like an opposing team in a championship game. And it wasn't the typical like, we love Jesus, yes we do, we love Jesus, I'm gonna punch you in the face, or whatever that cheer is. It was like a different thing, but it was like talking about it was like chant about like their program, which will remain nameless. And their Life Team program, and it was kind of like a, hey, we're the best, we're better than you. They would do this cheer like at softball games, at basketball games and stuff, like when we would play different programs. And I remember it struck me as really weird, okay? Because I was thinking to myself, like, I'm glad you guys love your program, but aren't we on the same team? Like, same team, go Jesus, yay, go God. And it was this young youth minister who was kind of encouraging his teens to do this. So being the older youth minister and having more teens, no, I'm just kidding. Being the older youth minister, I had to walk across the parking lot and be like, dude, what you're doing right now, really well-intentioned, but really messed up, because that's just not what we're about, okay? We're one family, one church. And I kind of feel like that was the vibe in the readings this week. So you have Paul and Barnabas, and this is where it gets really confusing, the first reading, okay? Because it starts talking about circumcision and Mosaic law, and you're like, oh, circumcision, cut it out. Okay, just kidding. So here's the situation, right? Paul and Barnabas, and a lot of Paul's disciples, are trying to reach out to the Gentiles. Now, Gentile Christians, okay, people who are not Jewish, were not circumcised. That was part of the law of Moses, that to be a Jew, you had to be circumcised. I know it's a gross topic, but go with me. So this is what's ends up happening, right? So Paul's running around these different communities of people who are not Jewish, not circumcised, and they want to believe in Jesus, and they want to become Christians. But you see, the Jews, who were like the original kind of Christians, who all were circumcised, are like, no, look, you have to obey our rules, our rituals, our laws. This is how you become a Christian. And Paul was saying, no. What circumcision sort of signified, baptism accomplishes. Like, we don't need to do that anymore. We don't need to have all the same rituals from when you were Jewish. And the Gentiles, they shouldn't have to go through all of that, because they're accepting Christ in their hearts to be baptized. So this is a real source of confusion in the early church. And this is why, if you ever read St. Paul's epistles and letters, it seems like he's really obsessed with circumcision. He's really not. But everywhere he'd go to different communities, different cities, they were like, okay, so what's the deal? Do I have to obey those laws, or am I obeying new laws? Which laws am I obeying? It's kind of like, we have to remind ourselves that the Acts of the Apostles, the early church, is not a musical. Okay, it wasn't like Paul walks into like a diner and everybody just jumps up and starts dancing in unison, and everybody knows all the steps, everybody knows all the words. Musicals are creepy, okay? They're not real. Sorry, but it's true. See, they had to work this stuff out. They had to figure it out. They got together and they argued, and they debated, and they prayed. Okay, that's how a family's supposed to deal with stuff. Stuff's gonna come your way. You're gonna disagree with your siblings, with your parents, with your family members, your closest friends at times. You're gonna have disagreements. And a Christian says, I'm gonna take a step back, I'm gonna look at it, I'm gonna talk about it, I'm gonna go directly to the person and talk about it. I'm gonna pray about it, okay? And then we're just gonna let God's will be done, all right? And someone's gonna have to be humble enough to relent. So St. Paul gets together with everybody, and they go to Jerusalem and say, here's what's going on in these other churches right now, okay? And we're gonna give this to you guys, but we gotta talk about this, we gotta pray about it. And it's a really beautiful example of how this is supposed to work in the church, all right? And what ends up happening is that they say, okay, you know what, it's the Gentiles, you don't have to be circumcised, you don't have to do this and this and this, but you can't eat meat that was sacrificed to idols. And you have to make sure all the blood's out of the meat before you eat it. So there are certain regulations. So the Gentiles still have to make sacrifices. They still have to live according to certain regulations, but not all regulations. Do you know how they came to that compromise? Prayer. They came to that compromise through humility. See, Paul came and said, here's the situation, but then he put it at their feet and said, okay, I'm just bringing up to you what's happening in these other churches right now. Now, there are going to be people in your life, your friends, your siblings, your parents, your circle of friends, coworkers, right, classmates, who you're not always going to agree with. People who don't share your same beliefs, that don't share your same perspective, mindsets. Sometimes even people who are Catholic, who don't share your same beliefs, and your same approach, your same mindset, or that of your parents. But here's the thing. How Catholic are you? Are you more Catholic than the Pope? Are you more Catholic than God? Like for my situation on the beach, was it more about your parish than it was about the church, the bigger church, the Big C church? Are we all in this thing together, or are we sowing division? See, because when you sow division, well, that's the work of the enemy. You see, the devil subtracts and divides. Christ adds and multiplies. Just read the gospel. It's simple math. If you want to actually bring unity, the only way to find unity is to find unity in Christ. To start with common ground. What do we all believe? What do we all believe? And what can we all get on board with? And you start there. And then you ask intelligent questions. And then you challenge one another. And you can have debate as long as it's healthy and respectful. And then you pray and you discern. And that's how the church grows. That's how the church grew in these readings today, for this Sunday. It's how the church continues to grow. In those places that people are willing to be humble and prayerful. My brothers and my sisters, it's been great traveling with you during this Easter season. I really pray for you for a huge outpouring of the Spirit coming in Pentecost, and that you have a life that's anything but ordinary as we start to head into ordinary time this summer. Talk to you soon.